Okay, so yesterday we learned how to navigate through the metric system using the metric system number line. You can also do the same thing with what's called dimensional analysis. So I'm going to teach you how to do dimensional analysis, which is what you should have read about after you did that first page of metric system conversions. The second page had a couple of problems that were already worked out for you, so you can walk through it step by step. So that's always available to you if you need to go back and refresh yourself with how to do it. So let's say you're given a problem where you want to convert 17.3 miles and you want to convert that to inches. And then we'll go back to the metric system and convert to kilometers. So you already have one tool in your toolbox, and that's the metric number line to get through any of the units in the metric system. But we also need dimensional analysis in order to convert from one system to the other. We can also use dimensional analysis to get through the metric system also. So the first thing I do is to find my given. My given in problems is always going to be the one with the numbers. So my given is 17.3 miles. There are going to be some circumstances where you have units on the bottom. For example, if you've ever seen something written as, let's just say 55 mph, which is 55 miles per hour, that little slash mark tells you that the miles are the units on top and the hours are the units on the bottom. But if you don't have units on the bottom, we're going to put a 1 down there as a placeholder. So now we need to use some conversion factors to cancel out units we don't want and get to units we do want. So in your pink packet, you're going to go to the page that looks like this with your number line on there. And then I have some equivalency statements that we're going to turn into conversion factors. So you notice you have length, volume, time, and mass. Everybody in here has a pink packet, right? Okay. So you're going to look for, in this case, we're in this section that is about length. Length and distance are the same thing. So everybody look through your conversion factors and find one that has mile in it. So you see the equivalency statement that we're looking for says 5,280 feet is equal to 1 mile. Remember that when we are given equivalency statements, we can turn them into conversion factors. 5,280 feet in 1 mile, or 1 mile as 5,200. One common mistake that kids make is they think that the number 1 always goes on the bottom. Sometimes it goes on the bottom. In this case, it will go out on the bottom, but it doesn't always go on the bottom. So how do I decide? Well, I look and I see I need miles to cancel out. In order for units to cancel out, you have to have 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom. So in order for me to cancel miles out, I'll need to put miles on the bottom. So I'm going to change miles to feet. Feet stays with the number it came with, which is 5,280, and miles stays with the 1. Now I'm done with my units of miles, and I'm in feet. If I wanted to change it to feet, I would be done, and my answer would be 17.3 times 5,280. But let's go one step further, and let's change feet into inches. This is one we found out yesterday everybody's pretty familiar with. 1 foot is the same as 12 inches. Now my feet cancel out. So all my units cancel out except for inches. You have to have the unit you're wanting to get to on the top in this particular case. So in my calculator, I would multiply across the top and divide by the bottom. 17.3 times 5,280 times 12. All of that's divided by 1. We all know that 1 can be ignored in these circumstances because anything divided by 1 is the same as not dividing it by 1. So in my calculator, I would just multiply 17.3 times 5,280 times 12. And my calculator gives me a number of 1,096,128. Any questions there? Put your given down, find an equivalency statement, and turn it into the appropriate conversion factor that allows you to convert the units. Multiply across the top, divide by the bottom. So let's keep going. I'm in inches now, and if you see, each of the sections of conversion factors have one conversion factor or one equivalency statement that will take you from the English system to the metric system. Those are in bold. The only exception is time, because time is the one thing that everybody uses the same scale for. So I'm going to say I am going to find my conversion factor that's going to take me to the metric system, and it says it's 2.54 centimeters is equal to 1 inch. So inches needs to go on the bottom to cancel out, and centimeters will go on the top. 1 goes with inches, and 2.54 goes with centimeters. Now I need to change centimeters to kilometers. You've got a couple options here. You can calculate centimeters and then go to your number line and move it over. You can go from centimeters to meters and then from meters to kilometers if that's what makes more sense to you. But I'm going to do it the most straightforward way. So here's a strategy that is good to know. I need centimeters to cancel, and I want to go to kilometers. So you guys tell me, which unit is bigger, kilometers or centimeters? Kilometers is bigger. The larger unit in these conversion factors always gets a 1, because I don't want to deal with fractions or decimals. That doesn't make sense. So we're going to give our big unit our smallest number, which is 1. Then our small unit is going to get a 1 also, but it's going to get lots of zeros. And you might say, how many zeros? Well, you're trying to get from centimeters to kilometers. How many arrows are there between centimeters and kilometers? 5. The number of arrows is the same as the number of zeros the small unit gets, like such. We have kilometers on the top, so that means that we're in good shape. Does everybody understand how I came up with the conversion factor between centimeters and kilometers? We can do more practice if we need. So in your calculator, you would multiply across the top 17.3 times 5,280 times 12 times 2.54, and then I push the equal sign. Then I do divided by 100,000, 1 with 5 zeros. And my calculator is going to give me an answer of 27.8 kilometers. We are not worried about what's called Sig Figs yet. But I want to point out that if you were to do this problem, the final step would be rounded to the proper number of Sig Figs, and that comes from the given. The given has 3 digits, so my final answer will have 3 digits. Those are significant digits. I'll just wanted to mention that because I haven't taught you yet, but we will get to that next. So any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to do another problem. Just make myself some space. Let's do a problem in a different section. How about we go over to volume? My given is going to be 1,086 milliliters. And we're going to calculate the number of gallons and then the number of ounces. Remember, the first thing I do is find my given and put it over 1. 1,086 milliliters. I'm going to go over to my volume section because I recognize milliliters is a way to measure volume. And I'm going to gallons, so I know I'm going to an English system measurement. So the first thing I want to do is change milliliters to liters because my conversion factor is the fact that there's 1 liter, there's 1.06 quarts. There's lots of other conversion factors, as you, I'm sure, guessed with all the units out there. We're just using a pared down version. So I notice I have to get to liters first. Does anybody remember how many milliliters there are in a liter? Well, let's go through this. I put milliliters down here because it needs to cancel. Remember, in order to cancel units, you're always going to see the same pattern. We're going to see a pattern of the unit up here goes down here. The next unit will go down there, so on and so forth. So you should be able to see that pattern throughout your entire problem. So I put milliliters down there, and I put liters on top because that's what I'm changing it to. Which is a bigger unit, milliliters or liters? Liters is a bigger unit, so it gets a 1. Milliliters also gets a 1 with some zeros. How many zeros, you ask? Well, liters is a base unit, and then you're looking for little m. How many arrows are between liters and little m? Base and little m? 3. So we're going to get 3 zeros to milliliters. There's 1,000 milliliters in a liter. Now, remember my pattern. If I have liters up here, liters will go down here. And now I can change liters to quarts. One liter has 1.06 quarts. Now I'm in units of quarts and I need to get to gallons. How many quarts are in a gallon? 4. So let's remind ourselves quarts is on the top, so I'll put quarts on the bottom to cancel. And I'm looking for gallons because that's what they asked me to find. There's 4 quarts in 1 gallon. Do you see how I didn't put the 1 on the bottom? This is a case where quarts has to go on the bottom to cancel, 4 has to go with quarts, and 1 has to go with gallons. Multiply across the top, so you'll multiply 1086 times 1.06, press enter. Then you divide by parentheses 1000 times 4, end parentheses, and your calculator is going to give you an answer of 0.28779. I'm going to round to 4 digits for 0.2878 gallons.
Miss Lawson,
Yes.
could you go over again what you're multiplying?
I'm multiplying across the top, so I pick all the numbers across the top. This is a number on the top, this is a number on the top, this is a number on the top, and this is the number on the top. But we all know when you multiply by 1, it doesn't change anything, correct? So in my calculator, I would multiply 1086 times 1.06, multiply it by those 2 ones if it makes you feel better, but you don't necessarily need to if you know enough about numbers. So on the top, I end up getting 1151.16. I'm going to press the divided by button. And then I'm going to divide by the numbers on the bottom, like such. So divided by parentheses 1000 times 4, end parentheses. And then when I push enter or equals, depending on your calculator, my calculator tells me 0.28779. I rounded it to 4 significant figures, which again, I don't expect you to know that yet. But this brings us to a good place. Now I can convert gallons to ounces. If you were going to use your answer for gallons to convert to ounces, you wouldn't use your rounded number. You use your raw number. So I go back and I'm in gallons. And we're actually going to have to backtrack a little bit, but that's okay. So we're going to go gallons. Oops. To quarts. And then we're going to go quarts to pints. There's 2 pints in a quart. Who knew, right? And then in 1 pint, there's 4 cups. And in 1 cup, there's 8 ounces. Does everybody see where I got all those conversion factors from? And look at all those conversion factors, people. Those are all your English conversion factors: gallons, quarts, pints, cups, ounces. Do you see how none of them are related to each other? And I really think that's the reason why, even though we've learned them before, we don't remember them, because they're all so random. And that's one thing our brain has a hard time wrapping around, is random. Let's double check that our units cancel. You have to have one unit on the top and the same unit on the bottom to cancel. I have to end up with the units I'm looking for on the top. So in your calculator, you'd multiply 0.28779 times 4 times 2 times 4 times 8 and press enter. That's what we call multiplying across the top. Then you would divide by the bottom, but those are all 1. And I get an answer to 4 digits of 73.67 ounces. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, this is an introduction to dimensional analysis using English units. After today, you're going to practice. I gave you 8 problems, and then we're kind of going to lean away from the English system. I only gave you 8 problems, so I need people to do a little bit of a self-assessment. Do we know what we're doing with the English system? Starting tomorrow, we're going to use our dimensional analysis skills to things that actually matter to us in science class, which is our mole conversions. So you guys can pull up that document, which is the same as you worked on yesterday, and there's 8 problems at the end that I want you working on now. You need to stick around for me though, because I need to do a seating chart, which includes you guys at home, who I expect to be here and where they're sitting, and who I expect to be home. So work on that while I work on the stuff I have to work on. I am here though. Holler if you have a question.